Hello collectors, and welcome to another episode of Collector's Edition. Now I've decided to make this a bi-weekly show, so every 2 weeks we'll now get a new episode. I'm losing collections to show you, so I'm not getting out on the road as much. And so yeah, that's the bad news. Now the good news. It's a new episode of Collector's Edition, and if you've entered our competition, you could win this BB-8. Your name might appear down the bottom at the end of the episode. This episode's about PlayStation. I'm going to give you a little bit of history. I've got my notes so I don't forget. So the PlayStation, or the PS1, was released in Australia in 1995. And this console competed with systems such as the Nintendo 64, the Sega Saturn, and these were essentially the 5th generation of consoles to come out. In 2000 a slimline model came out, and it was named the PS1, not the PlayStation, because by 2000 the PS2 was already out. PS1 units were continued to be sold deep into the noughties. They were officially discontinued in March 2005. For a total of 102 million units sold. Even though the PS1 was discontinued in 2005, Sony kept making games into 2006, and it was only 1 year before the PS3 debuted. The official release titles on the PS1 were games such as Warhawk, which we see a remake on PS2, Ridge Racer, which we see 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to PS3, and Rayman. Rayman was an original title that came out with the PlayStation. These were launch titles. The console also spawned titles such as Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, and you continue to see these titles develop over the PlayStation family. One of the rarest things that you'll find on a PS1 are the original releases, which had a parallel 1-/0 port and the RCA jacks. Now, this one, if you don't know what a parallel I/O port is, if you take this little thing off here, was that? So you could connect it to a computer. They also had 3 jacks in the middle here, which were the yellow, red and white. So you could connect through that. They only released, very original ones had that. Now, from Sony you could buy a program called NetYaroze. Yaroze. It was a development kit that you could use as a hobbyist or a developer, and it allowed you to, it had documentation and the software so you could make your own games and applications for the PlayStation 1. In November 2000, the leading consoles were Dreamcast, Xbox, GameCube, and the PS2. The PS2 offered backward capabilities with its controllers and its games, and also its memory cards. Even though the memory cards were a lot smaller, they were 1 megabyte, and PS2 were releasing megabytes of 8 megabyte memory cards, but you could still use them all on the PlayStation 2. The PS2 still stands to this day to be the highest selling console ever. It's sold over 155 million units. The PS2 was so popular through the 6th generation, it continued into the 7th generation and was outselling the PS3. PS2 was in production for over 13 years. This is one of the longest runs that a console has ever been in. The highlight games of the series were continuing titles such as Grand Theft Auto 2, 3 and the Metal Gear Solid series. The console also showed us some new heroes such as Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. We saw games such as Kingdom Hearts, which was a Disney-influenced Final Fantasy, and you had accessories such as SingStar, so you could sing on the PlayStation 2. You had Rock Band, Guitar Hero, so you had all the accessories coming out. There was also a thing called iToy, which was the original PlayStation camera, and you could interact with the screen. You used to hit fireworks and all that sort of stuff. It was great. And they also released Buzz the Music Quiz. This was the first of about 4 or 5 in the series, and it allowed you to play with your friends or by yourself in a quiz themed game show. You had similar things like this, such as Wheel of Fortune and The Price is Right, but they weren't as popular as Buzz, because Buzz was a quite funny character. The PS2 released a slimline model, which is this one. PS2 released a slimline model, similar to this one. A rare item in the PS2 world is a Sony Bravia. Now if you go to your local television store, you can look at new Sony TVs, and they're still called a Bravia. But one of the originals was a 22-inch, the model number was KDL22PX300. It was a 22-inch TV, and you know how you can get the modern day TVs with the DVD player on the side? Well, this had a PlayStation 2 in the side. They're very rare, they did a very limited run of them, and they were mostly sold in Japan, that was it. Even though the PS2 was so popular well into Generation 7, PlayStation wanted something bigger to compete with Xbox's 360 and the Nintendo Wii. Hence, the Blu-ray storage medium, PS3, was born. This also included a slimline version. It branched out with portable systems such as the PSP, and allowed remote access, so you could play with this on your PS3. The PS3 sold 85 million units. The original PS3, which is this one, the big fat one as they were called, had backwards capabilities, but only with some games. Some games would load, others wouldn't, and it was a complicated issue. There was system updates that just wouldn't work for it. There was the Apocalypse, which was Apocalypse with PS3 as the last 3 letters, which meant the first leap year that this was out, it wouldn't update, so you couldn't play your games, you didn't have online connectivity, and it was a big error code, and it was a huge thing. You had to go take these in and get them done. Then you lost your backwards capabilities, such as when the Slim came out, they just got rid of it all completely. The PS3 was struggling in the market with the popularity of Wii, and this brought them to releasing a Super Slim model, which was no bigger than the Slim PS2. So the Slim PS3 was basically this part here, so you got rid of all this, so it was that big and that big. And then the PS3 Super Slim was just this top bit, and this featured a flip top similar to the PS1. So it was just the game on this side and all the system on this side. There weren't many PS3 games that exploded onto the market. They were trying to be Wii, as most reviewers called them, with titles such as Virtual Fighter and Motor Storm, where you had to use the controller to steer. But some of my favourite games, which I like to point out, is Ellen Page's and William Dafoe's Beyond. This was a great game. It also came out with Heavy Rain, which have now been re-released on PS4, which are just fantastic. They're fantastic games. If you've never played them, they're great. It also continued into one of the most controversial games, Grand Theft Auto 5, which was then re-released on the PS4 with online connectivity. Speaking of PS4, in 2013 the PS4 was released with a faster processor unit, bigger capacities, higher graphics, and everything about the PS4 was positive. The reviews were positive. It said that there's so many possibilities that can come from it, and that saw the release of the PlayStation Camera, which is similar to the Xbox Kinect, and that led to PlayStation VR, which is virtual reality. This was one of the first virtual reality systems that were affordable. You can buy the entire system for $550. I think that's still the going price. They're doing more releases or something. But compared to other systems that you can get, which are very blocky and not very graphical, as it would call, these can be up to $2,000. So yeah, PlayStation are leading the way in virtual reality as a home console field. A lot of the games now, you can get PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 backward capabilities by downloading them online and buying them and purchasing like that. So that's a little bit of my PlayStation collection. If you entered our competition for the BB-8 and you won, your name will now appear here. Congratulations. You'll get a message soon trying to get this to you. Remember to follow me on Facebook, and that's over. www.facebook.com/collectorseditionau. You can also check out my Patreon page so I can try and do better videos. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Keep collecting.